matter.
So Ann Craig's our executive director, and she's actually taking vacation, so we're coming presenting. So I'm Kendra Phillips-Neal. I'm the shelter director at Jackson Street Youth Shelter.
And I'm Kathy Roberts. I'm the business manager, and I help with development work.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have a handout. I'm not sure that we have quite enough. You may have to share, but it's two pieces. One large piece and another one enclosed inside.
So I'll go ahead and get started. To answer the question of what specifically our agency does for the community is that Jackson Street Youth Shelter provides emergency and transitional shelter. We have day services, such as supervision for parents who work awkward schedules and need their youth to be in a safe, stable, and secure place. And we also do outreach services, which include street outreach, mentoring, tutoring, and case management. And we've been doing this for 10 years in September. The project that we're seeking funding for is for shelter, case management, and education support. The shelter provides a safe, stable, and secure environment for the youth to work directly on their goals to continue moving forward in a successful life. The youth that we serve in our overnight services are usually coming from a homeless or crisis situation of most likely abusing drugs and alcohol, being physically, emotionally, or sexually abused themselves. Some of our youth have a really hard time in school and making peer relationships, so we provide an environment where we can help teach them how to do those things successfully. The case management piece is a service that we provide in our shelter and in our outreach services. It's provided by our lead staff. We have 4 lead staff. And the case management is where the youth work one-on-one with the lead staff and they set goals and accomplish those goals. So we usually do case management on a weekly basis, sometimes more than that, set 3 to 4 goals at a time, and then they spend the week period working on those goals and accomplishing them. Each goal is set to make their future more successful. And then the education support is referred to as our youth education program, also known as YEP. And it provides free access to tutors in the community, in our shelter, and then one-on-one personal tutoring. The youth who access the tutoring work with a tutor for 1 day to a year. We've had someone with 1 tutor for up to a year. And they work on a specific grade, a specific class, a specific project, or a specific assignment.
And I'm going to talk about how much money we're asking for and what it's to be used for. We're asking for $15,000, which is the same level of funding that we have this current year from United Way. Although both our education support and outreach programs are growing, and they're growing rapidly, we're trying to be realistic about our expectations from various funders. We know budgets are tight all over, and although we do feel that we provide an exceptionally good return on the community's investment. Now, if you look at the one handout, the kind of purple one that I sent around, talks about the idea that early investment in a troubled youth's life is going to pay big dividends down the road. You know, those of us who deal with numbers like to talk about leveraging, and at Jackson Street we feel we're starting at the thin end of that wedge, of that cost wedge. We try to intervene down here before the cost goes way high as somebody grows older. We also leverage your dollar by using volunteers, and we have a wonderful force of volunteers who are doing tutoring, mentoring, leading activities, and our plan is to team them up with paid staff to do street outreach. Specifically, nearly all of our budget is spent on personnel. And this graph shows you that 80% of our cost is personnel related. And when you think about that, you can see why. A medium-sized nonprofit might have 4 or 5 full-time employees working 40 hours a week. 4 employees working 40 hours a week is about 700 hours a month. There are 720 hours in the average month, and we have to have every one of those hours covered, usually by more than one person. And that doesn't count the administrators and the people who are working on the funding end of things, the reporting, the liaison with community partners. So at Jackson Street, our payroll averages about 1,900 hours a month. That's 9 to 11 FTE, and nobody's well paid. I work there. I can guarantee nobody's well paid. And the people who do the work with the young people are just extraordinary, but they're barely making more than minimum wage. And in fact, this is an area we are targeting for future development at Jackson Street. We want to be able to pay these people enough to make a living, to improve their personal development, their professional development, and to stay with our agency. But right now, we're still kind of in that mode of trying to squeeze every last ounce of worth out of the given dollar. Delivering human services is a very human-intensive business. And to get the most from our services, as Kendra said, we do need to have time for a caseworker to work one-on-one with the youth. And they can't do that while they're supervising 4 or 5 youth after school. So somebody else has to do that. So what we're really trying to do is expand our caseworker hours, our lead caseworker hours, just enough to get some more of that good, important, valuable one-on-one case management into the system.
So I brought a graph and I'll pass it around if you can't see it. And the graph shows our last 4 fiscal years of how many we have served in each area of our programming. And this is this current fiscal year. And the orange part is outreach services. So you can see how outreach services has increased and just the need for it continuing to increase. In the last 8 months of this fiscal year, we have already served 57 youth in our shelter services and 132 youth in our outreach services. Those are unduplicated numbers. It doesn't count how many times we've served each youth over and over and over again. Our goal for the coming fiscal year that we're applying for funding is to serve 75 to 85 youth in shelter services and 150 youth in outreach services. But I feel like we'll certainly go over that with the numbers that we already have. Considering the current numbers, I think our success is pretty realistic on the goals that we've set, and we have employees prepared and ready to implement the programs that we're applying for.
And what would we do if we were funded under our request? Well, let's face it, like everybody who's going to sit here, I'm going to tell you it would be a blow. We're looking at a loss of city social services funding unless the levy passes. That would be a significant loss to us. Private grants have been harder to come by in the last 2 or 3 years. They have their own money problems. They don't have quite as much to give away. And remember, private funders always want to fund something new and exciting, not something that you have established that's working well and growing. Every $1,000 cut from our budget means 80 fewer caseworker hours. And remember how important those caseworker hours are to the youth that we serve. So the first thing to go would be caseworker training time. We've lately been able to squeeze in some suicide prevention training and some other training opportunities for our staff. The next thing to go would be street outreach, because you can't supervise kids and do street outreach at the same time. And one-on-one case management would also be reduced if we lost a significant amount. That would be the last thing we'd try to cut, but it might have to go. In an extreme case, if a lot of our funding streams are cut off, we would be looking at closing the shelter during the day, and we really don't want to do that. Questions?
You're pretty much out of time, so
Okay.
thank you very much.
We have a lot to say.